All right, let's just jump right in, shall we? Today, in this explainer, we are unpacking the career of a literal juggernaut. We're talking about someone who is undeniably one of the most influential entertainers of the 21st century, Taylor Swift. And look, we aren't just talking about a musician with a few catchy hits here. We're looking at a true cultural icon, a wildly successful businesswoman, and the blueprint for aspiring musicians everywhere. I mean, we're talking multiple Grammy Awards, record-breaking albums, sold-out stadium tours that literally shake the ground, and billions, yes, billions with a B, of streams. But, she didn't just magically appear on a stadium stage out of nowhere. Today, we're going to figure out the exact blueprint of this massive success. So the big question we really need to ask is, how does a 14-year-old kid from Pennsylvania break into the notoriously ruthless Nashville scene and eventually become a global pop sensation? To really understand her massive modern success, we actually have to transition all the way back to her incredibly ordinary, totally relatable beginnings. Born in 1989, she spent most of her childhood in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. Her dad was a financial advisor, her mom was incredibly supportive of her dreams right from day one, and she had a younger brother. Just a completely normal family, right? But unlike a lot of kids her age, she wasn't just out riding bikes. She was spending hours writing poems, coming up with melodies, and actually performing at local talent shows and community festivals. And her progression, it was incredibly rapid. Growing up in PA, she developed this absolute obsession with country legends like Shania Twain, Faith Hill, and the Chicks. But the real game changer, the moment that shifted absolutely everything, was when she got her hands on her very first guitar. She spent countless hours learning chords, writing lyrics, and practicing literally every single day. Her passion for music completely took over. Recognizing that this wasn't just a phase, her family took a massive, massive leap of faith when she was just 14. They packed up and relocated to Nashville, Tennessee, the undisputed heart of country music, just so she could pursue this professionally. And man, that single decision changed the course of music history. Now, moving to Nashville is the dream for countless aspiring singers, right? But here's the thing. Taylor didn't just move there and wait for the phone to ring. She actively hit the pavement. She was physically visiting music publishers and record labels, marching in, introducing herself, and performing her original songs face-to-face. That level of proactive hustle, that sheer confidence and determination from a teenager, it stood out immediately. It proved to those seasoned industry executives that she had some truly extraordinary potential. And all that relentless drive brings us right to a pivotal milestone, 2006. This was the year she officially launched the whole shebang. Taylor actually became one of the youngest artists ever to be signed by Big Machine Records. And that very same year, she dropped her debut, self-titled album simply called Taylor Swift. That debut was just packed with hits right out of the gate. We're talking Tim McGraw, Teardrops on My Guitar, our song Picture to Burn. These definitely weren't just filler tracks. They became massive anthems that swept all across the US. Why? Because they reflected genuine teenage emotions and real-life, everyday experiences. And what's wild is that this album didn't just debut and fade away. It hung around on the Billboard charts for years. That kind of sustained success immediately proved to the whole industry that she was way more than just a flash-in-the-pan new artist. Which brings us to her absolute secret sauce, perfectly captured right here. She wasn't trying to be someone else. She simply shared her own stories. You see, unlike a lot of singers who rely on huge camps of external writers, Taylor wrote or co-wrote almost all of her own material. That made her music feel incredibly authentic and just deeply personal. Fans felt this direct connection to her because her lyrics never felt manufactured. They described real emotions, the stuff everyone actually goes through. That foundational honesty, that became one of her greatest superpowers. All right, so that leads us into Section 1, the tipping point, Fearless. When Fearless dropped in 2008, it was an absolute global phenomenon. Tracks like Love Story, You Belong With Me, 15, and White Horse, these weren't just country radio hits anymore. These became worldwide anthems. Millions of people around the globe were suddenly discovering Taylor Swift for the very first time. The album became one of the best-selling records of the entire year. And just like that, literally almost overnight, she was no longer just a rising star in Nashville, she was an international superstar. And this is where we see an unprecedented shift in the modern music landscape. She rapidly evolved from this young country artist singing about high school into a massive worldwide pop sensation with millions of loyal fans spanning across the globe. Her popularity was spreading like wildfire, expanding way, way beyond the traditional boundaries of country music. But here's what's crucial. She wasn't just popular, she was deeply respected. Fearless swept up several Grammy Awards, culminating in the absolute crown jewel, Album of the Year. Taking that home made Taylor one of the youngest artists in history to ever receive that specific, prestigious honor. And this was a massive turning point. Winning that Grammy proved to the world that she wasn't just riding a wave of catchy radio tunes. The entire music industry was formally recognizing her for top-tier songwriting, sheer creativity, and undeniable artistic talent.
Which brings us to Section 2, the secret sauce, songwriting and community.
So the first pillar of this massive sustained success is obviously her songwriting. She writes about the universal stuff, right? Love, friendship, family, heartbreak, big dreams, and personal growth. Her exceptional talent is taking these huge, sometimes really overwhelming human concepts and distilling them down into simple, incredibly powerful words. Because she does that, people of literally all ages feel as though Taylor is quite literally telling their own stories through her music. It's like she's holding up a mirror, reflecting the listener's own life right back at them. And that deep lyrical connection directly fueled the second pillar, the Swifties. We have to define this because it's not just a casual fan base, it's among the most dedicated fan communities worldwide. Notice I said community, not audience. Instead of just dropping an album and disappearing, Taylor actively built a genuine, fiercely loyal community of people who feel deeply connected, not just to her, but to one another. So how do you actually build that? Well, she used a highly intentional blueprint. First, regular interaction. She never hid away. She was constantly engaging at concerts, in interviews, and all over the internet. Second, secret listening sessions. She was literally inviting fans into her actual living rooms to hear albums before they were released. Who does that? And third, handwritten, deeply personal gifts and messages. Throughout her whole career, she's surprised fans with these incredibly thoughtful, small gestures. These aren't big corporate marketing campaigns. They are personal touches that cement a lifelong bond between the artist and her community. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. If a global empire, we're talking billions of streams, record-breaking tours, and totally unmatched cultural influence, was built on simply sharing real, everyday emotions, what does that say about the undeniable power of absolute authenticity? It was never about a gimmick. It was never a manufactured persona. It was literally just an ordinary girl from Pennsylvania with a guitar, insane proactive drive, and the courage to just be completely honest. That honest storytelling is exactly what built this 21st century cultural icon. Definitely something to think about the next time one of our songs comes on. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive.